Hey, Stewart's Chapel, this is Don Pierson, and Don counts the double D's. And we're at Jeff and Amanda Simmons' home, and we appreciate their hospitality. And this is Saturday's devotion, and we're in Colossians chapter 3, verses 23 through 25, through 24. 23 and 24. I'll go ahead and probably read 25 as well. And whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men. Well, let's go back up and make sure we get the context right. Verse 22. Bondservants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in sincerity of heart, fearing God. And whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. But he who does wrong will be repaid for what he has done, and there is no partiality, no respecter of persons. When we began this particular set of devotions 2 days ago, we began by looking at the golden rule, doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I shared with you then that just about every world religion and every philosophy has the golden rule in some form within its teachings. Jesus gave that early on. It was a teaching that men were very much aware of, even though they weren't doing it. And what it appears, because it's in every religion and every philosophy, there is something innate in man that knows that that is the way we're supposed to treat one another, but we don't do it. But then yesterday, I shared with you that I believe that God has called His children to a new commandment, a commandment that is greater than the golden rule. As a Christian, the golden rule is not my standard for how I treat others. As a Christian, my standard for treating others is the way God, Christ, treats me. And we looked at those passages. Today, we're going to continue in this, and the third kind of overall heading is doing all that you do as a Christian, as though you were doing it unto Christ. And that involves what I do to others and what I do for Him. Everything. Now, the context that this passage is found, and by the way, it is found similarly in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 6 through 7. And in both cases, the call to do whatever you do as though it was to the Lord, the context is to slaves. Slaves. Now, my translation uses the word bondservants, which means that they are slaves that have willfully committed themselves as such. And so he's saying to these slaves, he said, bondservants, whatever you do, you don't need to be doing it for your master, not the earthly man, not the man of flesh, but you need to be doing it for the master. The master, the master over all of your life as a believer. So just think about it. I mean, it'd be different if he just said that generically to all Christians, but he singles out a group that really doesn't have much choice in relationship to its submission or to its service, but he challenges them to do what they do, not because they have to, but because they love the Lord and to do it for Him. In twice, he literally states the reason, or really the way that they are to do this in verse 2 and verse 3. Verse 2 says, in sincerity of heart. In verse 23, it says, do it heartily. In other words, and the Greek understanding of that word means to do it with your full heart. I mean, not half-heartedly, not partially, not even with a lot of your heart, but with all of your heart. And the way this Greek reads, it sings of that calling or those words of Jesus where it says, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy strength, with all thy mind, with everything that you got. And that's what it rings them. And he's saying to them that whatever you do, even when you're a slave and are you doing it for your master, whatever you do it as to the Lord with all of your heart, with everything that is in you. They are to do it not for eye service. That's the same phrase that is found in Ephesians as well. Not with eye service. And then not as men pleasers. That's also found in Ephesians. In other words, you do this with all that is in you, not just when your master's watching. Remember that the master is always watching. So don't do it just to be seen like the hypocrites or the Pharisees. Don't do it just so that you may get treated well by your owner or your master or your boss. You do it as for the Lord. And don't do it just so that you may get something out of it. That is a challenge in most of our jobs today. We love to be patted. We love the benefits. In fact, we expect raises and extra benefits when we give more. Do you know that there is no biblical foundation for that, for a Christian? Not in the New Testament. I am not to be like all other men. As a believer, I am to do what I do regardless of the physical rewards or the lack of them. I am to do it because I do it unto the Lord. So I want to leave that with you today. So if Jesus is saying that to slaves, then how does that relate to me as an employee? How does that relate to me in relationship in my family structure? How does that relate in just the way when I go to the bank and I treat the teller or the gas station or the waitress, or you understand? Do you just tip when you're treated well? We do everything we do as unto the Lord with all our heart, and we don't do it for men. Love you, Stewart's Chapel.